Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, February 19th. Mark the date on your calendar. February 19th, 2026. Time for another show, but this time with, I guess, an extra dose of accountability. It's an accountability day. Well, I mean, wait and see before we mark it down forever in history. There's a long way to go between the beginning of this process and the end. But, well, some people are a little further along in it than others. The front pages around the world demonstrate this global commitment to accountability, with the minor exception of the United States of America. We stand out as approaching things very differently. But I know Greg's got all the headlines. He's got videos about the headlines. Well, I have the videos. He gave me the videos about the headlines. So we have video clips to play, news to round up from around the country and around the world. I've got a couple of extra things that we can add to the theme about actual accountability, sort of, kind of, maybe almost happening here in this country too, but not for the biggest of the big, but, you know, for some bit players that support the biggest of the big, I suppose. Well, unravel. You probably have seen all the headlines by now anyway. Chief among them, of course, a dog that got onto the finish line of one of the cross-country races at the Olympics. I don't know the dog's name. No one does. But that was huge news as well. A very affectionate and very wolf-looking dog, although not big enough to actually be a wolf, and had a collar on and everything, which looked like a gold medal, which was very apropos for the Olympics. So I think that's probably the biggest news story of the day, the dog thing. The story's got legs, 4 of them, as a matter of fact. So that's at least twice as many as most of the rest of the people in these stupid stories that we've rounded up from elsewhere around the globe for today. But Greg Dworkin is here. I offer you this imperial fanfare. This is not to say that you have anything whatsoever to do with the royal family of Britain or anywhere else. It's just the guy likes margarine and short intros. Greg Dworkin, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine.
And not guilty as well.
Day, which is funny because, like, I can't even account for myself. So this is
accounting for hillbillies. Yes.
Yeah, this is from the Times UK London.
All right.
It used to be Times London. Now it's just the Times. You're supposed to know.
Yeah.
And, you know, the headline is Andrew is arrested, as if everybody knows who Andrew is.
Madonna's friend.
Narrator. Everybody knows who Andrew is.
Yeah.
However, within the story, they just say it in the quintessential British way. Let me give you an example. Thames Valley Police, it's one of his residences.
Oh.
We have today arrested a man in his 60s from Norfolk on suspicion of misconduct in public office and are carrying out searches at addresses in Berkshire and Norfolk. The man remains in police custody at this time.
I see.
It's important that we protect the integrity and objectivity of our investigation as we work with our partners to investigate this alleged offense. We understand the significant public interest in this case and will provide updates at the appropriate time. I would hate to be a man on his 66th birthday who happened to live in the area.
Yeah, right.
Because, you know, the Dragnet probably arrested all of them and put them in a lineup, you know.
Right. And without looking at their crowns, which one did
it? You know, there's no crown.
Not anymore.
You can't refer to him as Prince Andrew. He's ex-Prince Andrew at best.
Right.
And perhaps what they do, you know, is they look to see if there's like a ring on his hair.
Wow.
Where the crown used to sit, which is now like all worn away.
He's left an impression there. Yeah.
He left an impression, yeah.
He's
that crown really left an impression on me, you know, and I'm looking for it.
The royal, formerly known as Prince Andrew.
Something like that, yes.
I guess. Not royal anymore, that's the point, right? He was stripped of that, although look at this, I do see, what am I looking at here? Which, one of the, I guess it's X. On X, he's still trending as Prince Andrew, which is incorrect, of course. Yes. Oh, yes, right. Right. It's not even royal and whatever. I don't know. There's a big X in the screen, so I guess they finally fooled me into calling it that.
Yeah, X marks the spot, but it's still Twitter.
Okay, you're right. On Twitter, trending in the United States, which is also not where he's a prince.
It's still the Brooklyn
Prince Andrew
Tunnel. I don't care what they call it.
Okay.
You know?
I mean,
but anyway, so there's that, and the Guardian, of course, has note: South Korea's former president Yoon Suk-yeol jailed for life for leading insurrection. So we have the South Korean president jailed for life. We have Prince X Andrew.
Not X.
He's no longer Andrew anymore.
I see.
He's Andy now.
He's Twitter Prince Andrew.
Yeah, so he's been arrested for accountability, as the Count from Sesame Street used to say. How many people have been arrested based on the Epstein files? One. The number today is
particularly
one.
Wonderful, though. Yeah. Okay. That's accountability.
That's all going on. And Trump is having a board of peace meeting while he, gets ready for war with Iran. Because, we finished up we were so good at bombing nuclear sites that we didn't have to do this again. But now we have to go to war because Trump wants to institute the Obama deal.
That go back to the one. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, just so you don't lose track of what's going on here.
I see.
So, since the problem is that between Netanyahu and Trump, they're both inveterate liars, and you can't believe a thing they say. And so who knows?
And, well, we don't.
We don't. So let's talk about stuff we do know.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
This is Texas primary because, it's Thursday, so there must be voting somewhere.
Well, there is.
They're voting.
Yeah.
And I want to play... What are we talking here, Harry?
All right. Let's see. I've got his piece here. Is the volume up? Well, we'll find out when we hit the talk now button. True. All right, button.
I'm going to quote one of my favorite singers and actresses, Barbra Streisand. There's a real Barbra Streisand effect going on here. What are we talking about here? Well, take a look here. Google searches for James Tallarico. In the U.S., up 4,900% today versus Monday. How about in Texas, where you have that key Senate race going on there? Up like a rocket. We're talking about up 1,150%. So this has actually been very good news for James Tallarico. Wow. You want that attention. You have that primary going on in a few weeks, and he's absolutely gotten it, both nationwide and, of course, very importantly, in the state of Texas as well, the highest on record.
He is never. I got it. I'll be right back. I have to buy a ShamWow. I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden I just got to go get one, and maybe some Ginsu knives or something. But well, that's
Billy
what
Mays here.
Yeah, he's got another career in salesmanship. Well, he can always move over to the shopping channel. So 4,900% increase in Google searches. Searches, as we like to call them.
Which
all right.
are correlated with how people do, by the way.
Yeah, all right.
Not one-to-one, but the more people are interested in, the more you think that might do okay.
Sure. There was a higher interest in it. We haven't seen, I don't know whether anybody looked at the searches for Jasmine Crockett. I'm not certain anybody would find reason that those would be up. But as soon as she gets embroiled in something, she'll have her shotted too. But I bet her numbers for searches are always pretty high because she does pretty good video content.
Yeah.
All right. Was there more to this segment, or do we just want to hear Harry Enfield?
Well, just that Crockett's raising a ton of money.
Yeah.
We don't really know who's going to win. It doesn't collate there. But I sent you a graph of the skyrocketing interest over time for James Tallarico. So, for example, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert averages 2 million viewers.
That's terrific. Sounds good.
James Tallarico's banned interview with Stephen Colbert on his social media pages alone, 40 million views.
On
that's
Tallarico's pages?
Yeah. That's what they're talking about.
Well, that's the best kind of boost.
Yes, that's what they're talking about in terms of Streisand effect. Now, YouTube, where the video was posted, was at least double, I think, what The Late Show had. And if you look by platform, I don't have this in front of me, but I saw it the other day.
Okay.
Twitter had twice the amount of views of his interview as compared to YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or any of the others. So again, people say, "Why do you keep using X? It's run by a Nazi." It is run by a Nazi.
Yes.
But a lot of people sort of online live there, and that's why. Because that's where the information is. And
yeah.
by the way,
I mean,
Tallarico is being viewed there more than anywhere else. So, that's the point. Except
I guess
for
so.
Stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's huge problems with it, and at this point, I will say this. I mean, I keep hearing people complaining that they go back and they check it out and they say, "Oh my God," and it's full of Nazi filth. But I think just still like any other social media,
you gotta collate your feed.
Yeah.
If you block and if you're good about picking who you follow, you can get a lot of information.
I mean, I'm not interested in doing that at the moment, but it's largely because I have someone else doing it for me. So there is that.
You don't have to. I do it so you don't have to.
Right. So I can claim to be good.
Which reminds me, the State of the Union speech is next week, so I'm not going to watch it, so you don't have to either.
Oh, right. Okay, excellent. That's good. One of these days I should fool everybody by watching it.
No, don't do that.
But it'll be Trump, so meh. Not particularly interested.
I'll just watch snippets on X.
Next, Congress.
All right, so
we don't have to invite him to do it.
Yeah, that's right. There's a There's a Texan, a really good analyst named DJ.
Like me.
On Twitter.
All right.
DJ. DJ Soak speaking on Twitter if you want to find him. And he's, I think he's from Texas. And he says, honestly, the Texas Senate Democratic primary is kind of quaint.
Huh.
It's not sunshine, but something like 99% of Texas Democrats like both Tallarico and Crockett.
Yeah. That's
and
an
most
issue.
of the nasty discourse is non-Texan.
All right.
But then you look at the Republican primary, and I've received my 50th mailer from one candidate implying the other's a woke Muslim Jew. Seriously, this stuff is like one step away from Ken Paxton cheated on his wife to be with George Soros. John Cornyn wants to kill your children to enact Sharia law. Wesley Hunt is black. This primary is irritating at times, and then I step outside into the Republican world, and oh my God.
All right. Well, that's nice. I do dislike when things descend into bitterness, particularly when there's two candidates that I have reason to like. Okay, good. Keep it that way. And,
it is what it is. They're getting along. Again, we played the interview with Crockett the other day.
That's true.
She acknowledges and without rancor that, all this stuff's probably helping Tallarico, but, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's helping everybody. If it's a Democratic candidate bringing to light true things about how bad Texas Republicans are, for now we'll take it. Now,
there's numbers to follow. Doesn't tell you who votes. And again, Texas doesn't have party registration. What it does have is their Board of Elections will report how many Democratic and Republican ballots for primaries were selected.
All right.
And this is a statewide primary, so it gives you an idea of, registration and party balance and so on and so forth. So VoteHub decided to compare it to 2022. A lot of analysts are using 2024 for comparison. The reason being that there's been explosive growth in a lot of the counties outside of the big cities.
Okay.
And so, what are you comparing to? How are you going to compare apples to apples when your first apple changed? So, 2024 is the most recent one. But this particular one looks at 2022, and it's interesting. And I'm going to concentrate on two counties. Let's do.
Can I pick the county?
Tarrant County first. No, we're going to pick Jasmine Crockett's home base, Tarrant County.
All right.
And so far, in the first couple of days of early voting, 8,888 votes were cast, and that represents 314% of 2022 as of today, as of this many days into early voting.
Now I'm confused. All right. How many votes?
8,000. 8,800.
Okay. I was distracted by. Did you just say 8,888 votes? And I was.
Yes.
And I spent the rest of the sentence saying, no, he didn't say that, did he?
Yeah, he did. Look, you're a Kabbalah numerology guy. I get that.
Right.
But, it's 8888. And that doesn't tell you what lottery ticket to pick, but it's 314%.
Go get a lottery ticket. Yes, 314%.
Now that's Crockett's home base, so she must be doing really well, right?
That sounds good. What, day 2? I mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Tallarico's from the Austin area.
And
8. That has 8,252 votes.
That's
328% of 2022. Their home bases are turning out for them.
Okay. Well,
you
for
can
someone,
look county by county and see what's going on here, but it's just really interesting. All of Texas is turning out, and this is on the Democratic side. So there's nothing about the early vote that's telling you who's going to win, Tallarico or Crockett.
No, well, no.
The betting sites are
The ballots will
75
tell us.
Tallarico, 25 Crockett. The polls have Crockett with a slight lead, but a lot of them were commissioned by her.
Oh.
So we don't know.
Okay. You know.
And Democrats, for the most
stay
part,
tuned.
DJ's right, they most part like them both. So we'll have to see. And the
3.
primaries on March 3rd. On the other hand, on the other side, Paxton and Cornyn hate each other. Everybody
Cool.
hates Paxton.
Sure.
They just vote for him because he's powerful.
That's a
Trump
sitcom.
won't support him. Trump is supporting any of the 3 that are running. It doesn't even matter who the other guy is. Wesley Hunt, maybe?
You know, I don't know. That's what it sounded
but-
like you said before.
But,
Yeah.
the Republicans, according to the Washington, D.C. based reporters who are not in Texas, are really worried that Cornyn's going to lose. And, of course, they all back him because
Worried.
incumbents back incumbents. You've explained that to us over the
Yeah.
years for why that is. But they don't want Paxton, even though Paxton's more popular in Texas.
Yeah.
And they're less worried about holding the seat than they are about protecting Cornyn. But Cornyn is the one that possibly could hold the seat best, maybe. And so it's a twofer for them. It's a no-brainer. And the problem is Cornyn isn't that popular in Texas.
Well, good. I'm glad that's the case. I hope he loses, but institutionalists are, I guess, freaking out. Because even if they get, I think they're probably the worst outcome for institutionalists is to end up with Paxton.
Right. And again, go back to that article we read the other day about the median voter. Institutionalists and centrists are just panicked by the idea of change. They like being in the center because they think the center is where they are, and therefore the center is where everybody else is. And if they have to deal with something not being that, it panics them.
All right. Well,
True on the Democrat
the news
side.
is that
True on the Republican side.
Yeah. And very often the news is, hey, you're not in the center. You think you are.
What you thought was popular isn't all that popular.
Yeah. Too bad. All right. Move on. Find something popular.
Let's move on to a different
too.
theme here.
Please.
Because Texas is big, but that's enough about Texas.
All right. Yellow Rose.
Except for this one. Newsletter from the New York Times. Texas election season is getting spicy. Both parties' Senate primary races are kicking into high gear. But again, as DJ points out, it's much worse on the Republican side.
Well, they hate spice.
And that's the. Of course, they talk about Dems in disarray, but actually it's the Republicans.
Fantastic.
So,
finally, they still have to find an alliterative way of transferring this problem to them.
Yeah, Republicans in retreat. So this is a sin talking about a completely different topic, but I think one quite relevant. I think I have the video for you to play. Sure.
Yes. All right. I will click the buttons. All right. Oh, Stephen Miller is in this. Okay.
It's Ben Smith from
it's about
Semaphore.
Stephen Miller. Okay. Very good. I've seen his name, and now my stomach has turned.
No, I think people did think it was working. I mean, I think that's sort of the perception of that first 100 days, the flooding the zone, the shock and awe. And, that magic, whatever it was, has just totally worn off. And I think the Trump people, to some degree, persuaded themselves that they could shape reality, that they could, particularly on X, just reshape people's perceptions of what was actually happening. It reminds me so much of the Bush years. There was this famous line that, that the Bush administration gave, I believe, to like a GQ reporter, that they were, they didn't need that the power of the United States was such, the Bush administration, that they could reshape reality. They didn't need to respond to it. And I do think that the best analogy right here is for, at least in my own experience covering politics, is this just feels so much like 2006 when you had the Iraq War, which had been the great initiative of the Bush administration, the fight for freedom, was what made Bush popular and got him reelected in a certain way, had become so intensely unpopular. And you had this advisor, Donald Rumsfeld, who became seen as the kind of central figure of the administration and who resigned the day after the midterms. And I don't know if it's not really Trump's style to push people out, but I would think there's just enormous pressure on Stephen Miller right now. And I don't know if he resigns before the midterms, resigns after the midterms, sticks around. But I think that's, to me, it's sort of that moment where where the president put a lot of confidence in one advisor to steer national policy in a direction that's been politically disastrous.
Okay,
I thought that was quite a relevant comment.
Yeah. It's a good comparison. It's something to keep in mind, especially as we now poised to attack Iran again. I'm enthused by the idea of Stephen Miller being pushed out, and particularly of Trump, stewing over how badly he's doing because of this one jackass. Well, the asshole. Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I don't know whether I'm feeling it as a realistic possibility in the same way, but it's a good point. It's something to watch. It's worth thinking about.
Here's again the reason why you feel that way.
Okay.
This is a story on a different person, but same concept here.
All right.
This is the Daily Beast on February 17th. The Coast Guard was trying to find a missing service member when officials say Kristi Noem intervened in the search and rescue mission. She wanted to divert the searching vessels and or planes or whatever to migrant, chasing.
Yeah, I mean, that's her favorite activity for them, but they were in the middle of an active mission to look for a missing Coast Guard
service member. Yes, so Julia Kayam writes, these Coast Guard stories against Noem are because the Coast Guard smells blood in the water. She's horrible.
That's
the story's frightening.
For them.
I say it again, Trump and his policies are deeply unpopular both inside and outside government, so act like it. And that's all true. On the other hand, that's different than, betting on Noem or Miller or any of them getting thrown under the bus. The reason
BETT
he can't is omerta. If one of them goes, they know they all go. And so you can't. The first one is like, that's it. That's the crack in the dam that's going to break the dam. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. So that's why Noem's still there. That's why Bondi's still there. Everybody hates them.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just us on the left or center left.
I mean, but also
I mean everybody who works for them hates them. And so why are they still there? Because Trump can't afford to say, okay, I screwed up. He never does. He thinks that opens the door for criticism, which it does. But, at some point, you can't, keep it going. You just can't.
Yeah. The new Kristi Noem story, there's a new one every day, but I mean, that's because everybody is realizing, oh my gosh, everybody does hate them. I should add my hate story that I've been dying to tell everybody. Now is the time. That's a new one. I thought that.
Yeah, the fact that these stories are leaking is telling you what's going on here.
Right. Is there no ejector seat on this plane that they fly around? It's a Coast Guard thing. They can't open the pod bay doors and toss her out in flight? I guess not. Wow. All right. So it must make her super popular. Getting on the flight, and the pilots must be just glaring at her from under their hats like, we were searching for a guy. Or maybe not a guy, but a Coast Guard person.
Meanwhile, while all this is going on, U.S. trade deficits remain high in 2025 despite Trump's tariff policy, is today's story. New data shows Brexit has lowered UK GDP by 6 to 8% over the past decade, and economists were right about that it was going to happen, but wrong in thinking it was somehow recover. It never did. So all of that's going on. Political polls, total manufacturing job gains under W, minus 5 million, under Obama plus 100,000, Trump first term minus 100,000, Biden plus 600,000, Trump second term so far minus 100,000. So for the most part, Republicans are terrible at managing the economy, even though they've convinced people that they're good at it because they appoint businessmen. Democrats need to point out when you say that they appoint businessmen, what you're really talking about is that Republicans appoint the Epstein class to run things, and guess what? They're not very good at it, and that's not why they do what they do. They're part of the world elite that are trying to screw you and get used to it and vote accordingly.
Yeah. And also meshes with another theme. I mean, if you don't buy into the global elite story, well, one, you're crazy because it's turning out to be real.
Because it's true.
But the other story you can buy into is, well, why is it that every time we, put a businessman in charge or elect the party that says we ought to run the place like a business, that we lose jobs? And remember that we've gone over this before. The purpose of these rich businessmen operating their business is to lower their payrolls so that they can keep more of the money. They are job destroyers.
The workforce is a liability.
Yes, that's where they lose their money. Every business person
understands this. You lose money on your workforce. You want to get rid of them if you can. Mm-hmm. And so, no, it's a terrible idea to put a businessman in charge. It's awful. Well,
at least in terms of creating jobs for people. Their whole goal is... Well, yes, that's usually the people who would fill those jobs. If you're interested in having a job to fill or someone else in your family to fill or whatever...
It's good for filling their pocket, but awful for people.
Yeah. So that's it. Maybe the biggest hoax in American politics for decades, the idea that all of these job creation.
All of these people who are firing folks and screwing them and just look at your local newspaper.
And other things.
And filling their pockets and doing it because it's good for their bottom line. Mm-hmm. They're all part of the Epstein class, the same as the Andrew formerly known as Prince.
Right. Whether their name is Andrew or not. It's very easy to see and identify. And, I'm not sure why it's a persistent myth that way. There's just been so much, I guess, invested in it.
It's enough to make you a populist.
Maybe. Honestly, though, how long have we been showing the charts? Look, every time you put one of those R red guys in, the chart go down. Bad news. And every time you put one of those blue people in, they have to spend their time fixing the red mistake.
Well, remember, this year there were no soccer moms, just anti-system people.
Ah, okay. Well, that could be. They hate the refs. That could be it. Maybe that's why they learned it. All right, yeah. And also, no one can afford the soccer registration fees anymore. So there's that as well. It's very costly, this stuff, to do travel sports. Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, one crisp dollar bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show. Here on Netroots Radio, we continue on. There's all sorts of interesting things to explore. Pick one. Let's do that.
Well, let's see. Somebody posted this list of Trump failures, which I thought was interesting because we were doing the businessman theme.
Well, that's all the time we have for today.
Bankruptcies include at least 6: Trump Taj Mahal, Trump's Castle, Trump Plaza Casinos, Trump Plaza Hotel, Trump Hotels and Casinos Resorts. They all have his name on them.
Yes,
Trump Entertainment Resorts. They're bankrupt. Then there's just plain old failed businesses. Trump Steaks, Go Trump, Trump Airlines, Trump Vodka, Trump Mortgage, Trump the Game, Trump Magazine.
The Game. Twice. I forgot about the Game. The Water.
Trump University, Trump Ice, the New Jersey Generals, Tour de Trump, and Trump Network, and something called Trumped with an exclamation mark. So, put a businessman in charge of America because they know how to run a business into the ground.
Yeah. Over and over again. Bam. Okay.
Look, we said this in 2016. We said this in 2020. We said this in 2024. The cult is stupid. I mean, they're really stupid. They don't get this.
Yeah.
There's no other explanation that they're stupid. I tend to be very charitable about things, but not understanding this, you're stupid.
Yeah. I mean, the evidence is before you. And, I mean, I'll say this. He's the ultimate fake it till you make it practitioner.
Absolutely. This is Kyle Kondik on a completely different topic, but I thought was of interest.
All right.
There's a lot of congressional critters.
There are.
Both sides, but mostly Republicans that are retiring. They don't want to have anything more to do with this Congress. So whether for reasons of health or sanity, they're retiring.
Well, that's not sanity.
But most of them
are
from non-competitive districts, so it's not going to make that much difference. Except, what do you consider a non-competitive district? These days, you got to be R plus 15 to feel safe.
That's true. That's definitely a big factor.
Right. And of the 220 Republicans, 111 of them are from R plus 11 or more.
Oh. Well, that's tough. Although I will say, it's interesting when you say, ordinarily, I guess the retirements come from the more competitive districts of people thinking ahead to the headache of a tough campaign and just say, I've had enough.
Yeah.
The only thing, I guess the good news of people dropping out, retiring from not that competitive seats or entirely uncompetitive seats is open seats are weird and crazy things begin to happen. So in between special elections that bring out a different electorate that are happening in an atmosphere which is hugely anti-Republican, and then on top of it, a bunch of open seats in places that like I said, crazy things happen, opportunities to steal away a seat even in a place that it looks like the other party is wholly in control. And also it tends to open up, particularly if they retire late in the game, the primary is such a free-for-all that they tend to destroy one another.
Yeah, look
it's
at Texas
cool.
and the Senate race, for example.
Yes.
Now, the open seats, there's like 50 of them, 54. 30 Republicans, 24 Democrats. Of the 30 Republicans, 13 are in the R plus 11 or more.
Okay.
And 9 are in the R plus 8 to R plus 10. Used to be called safe, maybe not anymore.
Yeah.
But basically 22 of the 30 seats on paper appear to be safe. And 8 of them maybe are up for grabs. None of them are in like Democratic territory. Maybe 1, maybe 2.
Right.
Okay.
The
point is, there are 17, 27, 29, 30, 33 seats that are in R plus 5 or better for Democrats. So R plus 5 or less.
Okay. Yeah.
Those are the seats that, not the open ones, that Democrats are going to make their gains from, is really the point. Most of the open ones are relatively Republican safe, but there are plenty of R plus 5 or less, over 30, that Democrats can pick up in a Democratic wave. Plus, maybe 5 or 6 of the open seats. Open seats are easier.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to deal with the incumbency issue. But incumbents in possibly Democratic win districts are more numerous than open seats. So just keep that in mind. Look at all those retirements. Yes, but that's not the reason why Democrats are favored in a wave. Democrats are favored in a wave because there's 30 some odd seats in R plus 5 or less that Democrats have a chance to get in a wave.
True. Ordinarily, I mean, the open seats thing is sticks in mind because it's something that people latch onto, but it's usually because that's the long shot way of regaining the majority or keeping the majority. And there isn't a wave.
But you don't need the long shot wave.
No, you don't. It's just a bonus opportunity. And also another interesting factor, a weird effect in these super safe Republican seats is that it sometimes also leads to nominating a super, tone deaf Republican. This is a place where Republicans win kind of automatically. I'm the next in line. I've been the next in line for a long time. And so they'll step up and blurt out what they think is the Republican orthodoxy. Look away, nothing happened here. So what if I'm in the Epstein files? That's all a hoax. Uh-oh. I just stepped on it. That's actually, even Republicans are unhappy about that.
Right.
So people who have no reason to have paid attention to how to defeat a Democrat suddenly are called upon to defeat a Democrat, and they don't do it right. Or they say something about legitimate rape and lose that way.
Right. So I don't know if you are aware of this, but Trump is actually doing an affordability tour that nobody's paying attention to.
I am not aware
Today
of
he's
that.
going to be in Rome, that is to say Rome, Georgia.
Oh, all right.
And he's going to visit a steel facility, and nobody's paying attention. He's
Well,
trying
he's
to
going to
refocus
steal the
attention on
facility.
domestic issues while he goes to war with Iran. It's not working. He's trying to focus on domestic issues when the Andrew formerly known as Prince is arrested. I mean, none of this is working for him.
All right.
It's Epstein files and incompetence at the White House, and that's
Cool.
the story. And people are covering it, and that's what they're talking about.
Fine. Wonderful.
Or
We'll see what color his hands are.
Say, what are we talking about here? That's what we're talking about here.
Okay. Is this a hard hat picture day? Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah, you would assume.
Yeah. Well, all right. Don't give him the hat. See what happens. I mean, I like the pictures in the hats. They're stupid looking.
Relatively short segment today for me. That's really what's in the news. But I do want to finish with this New York Times story here.
Okay.
The Epstein files in the hidden world of an unaccountable elite, because I think they basically, encapsulate what's going on here. The search continues in the documents for ironclad criminal conduct. There's plenty of inference, but ironclad criminal conduct. But the story of sexual predator given a free ride by the ruling class has already emerged, and that can't change, really. That's my input here.
All right.
The story of impunity is all the more outrageous now in the midst of rising populist anger and ever-growing inequality. The Caligula antics of Jeffrey Epstein and friends occurred over 2 decades or so, the decline of Americans' manufacturing sector, which we just went over, and the subprime mortgage crisis in which millions of Americans lost their homes. If Mr. Epstein's goal was to build a wall of protection around his abuse by surrounding himself with the well-connected, he failed, but both before and after he was first prosecuted, his correspondents described a network of people whose high-flying lives belied the struggles of ordinary Americans, and at the center of that network was a sexual predator seemingly on top of the world. And then there's all sorts of back and forth that comes out in these emails from these rich and famous people saying, it's the little people who really have to worry, not us. Look at Jay-Z.
Is he a little person?
According to Super Bowl ads that year, James Staley, who recently stepped down as the chief executive of Barclays in the wake of allegations involving his ties to Mr. Epstein, emailed Mr. Epstein in 2014, this Mr. stuff that the Times does, like
Mr. Predator,
to suggest that upper-caste Americans like themselves were unlikely to ever face a populist uprising like the protests taking place in Brazil at the time. Pointing to Super Bowl ads, Mr. Staley wrote, "It's all about hip blacks and hip cars with white women. The group that should be in the streets has been bought off by Jay-Z." Now, the fact that these guys are racist is just built into the picture here.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, maybe that's what's
just so built in. It's
me
like,
for a second.
Well, tell me something I don't know.
That's people say crazy things. Reminder: don't write anything you ever would be embarrassed to be revealed.
Right. Let me give you an example. In 2014, Mr. Epstein received an email from an associate whose name has been redacted.
Not for long.
Why is it redacted? That's it in full. Thank you for a fun night. Your littlest girl was a little naughty. Why is that redacted? Is that a crime? I don't know. Maybe the littlest girl he meant short. We don't know. Okay, so the Times says, well, we're still combing to see whether or not something is prosecutable. Well, that's certainly worth investigating, and why the hell did you redact that?
Right. Well, they didn't redact it.
Well, it might embarrass him. Well, that's not your problem.
DOJ.
The law says you're only supposed to protect victims.
Yeah, and then they didn't do that. Which
the guy
is also
who said
amazing.
your littlest girl was a little naughty is not a victim.
Right. Well, isn't he the real victim here? That's usually the line that they go with. But yeah, not only when we say the law, what the law requires, not just generally speaking, redaction.
Right.
And
here are the lawyers working with the New York Times. Here's the lawyers, right? Because the next line is, lacking context, such messages are subject to speculation about their meaning and provide fresh opportunities for those intent on drawing attention to themselves and their views. Like, you partisans are trying to make something out of the fact that this guy said to a known child trafficker, your littlest girl was a little naughty. Don't read too much into it.
Yeah, don't do that. All right, well, that's nonsense, obviously. But, yeah, this is also a big and growing part of the the after story, I guess, and the story of how how it's not the crime, it's the cover up. Same sort of, same theme as always.
An assistant to Mr. Epstein wrote to him in 2011. I ordered sweet young coconuts from Thailand for you, and they just arrived, so you don't have to drink juice from the old hairy things. Now, why was that redacted?
What am I doing?
Who is the victim? What is going on here?
I don't know. I need some medicine of some kind.
I know. And then the Times goes on to say, even the apparently mundane can be stretched into potentially conspiratorial.
Yeah.
Well,
what a stretch.
But then they're talking about Pizzagate. So, yeah, I guess I see that. But the other stuff that I quoted, that stuff needs to be out there. That's what Rocha Hanna and Thomas Massey are talking about in terms of we're going to name names if you guys don't release everything. Because, no, everything has not been released.
Yes, that's certainly true.
In fact, the worse it gets for Trump and his friends, the more it's likely to disappear from the DOJ site. Which Massey and Hanna have complained. And, we have pictures of it. You have to put it back because it's not doing you any good.
But they've really, they continue to botch this release thing entirely. And then, of course, I need to point out that as bad a job as they appear to have intentionally done in over-redacting the names of predators, not victims, they were also, of course, directed to protect the names and identities of victims. And those pictures and names we accidentally didn't redact some significant percentage of that.
We were too busy redacting the name Trump, which is still in there.
And they still, everybody still knows he's in there thousands and thousands of times. So it seems like the number of mistakes is just too large to not be intentional. And meanwhile, even on the right, among the craziest of the crazy on the right, they're doing a poor job containing things there too. I happened to catch Nancy Mace clip of her. We monitor her mental health from time to time on TV, saying, I guess being asked, do you think Epstein committed suicide? No, absolutely not. He was definitely murdered. As a matter of fact, blah blah blah. But basically, I don't know what to make of Nancy Mace saying that, except to say there are crazy Republicans who, for their own reasons, are willing to go on TV and say, no, the whole thing is a lie from the Trump administration. Attack them from the left and the right. Okay, fine. I guess that's good news.
One of our listeners writes in an intriguing point and on point here.
Okay.
Which is to say that, the right thing to do here in response is tax them all. Tax the billionaires.
Certainly should be doing it, right? If not just tossing them anchors, but we should probably fish them out of the water, turn them upside down, shake them, see what falls out of their pockets, and then throw them an anchor, I guess. Yeah. All right. Meanwhile, of course, the Trump administration also disassembling the parts of government that could make that happen. I don't think I had mentioned anything about this but I think one of the articles I have about DOJ's dismantling itself is that in addition to taking apart the public integrity section that would usually take care of making sure that public officials who'd misbehaved in office, like Andrew, were held to some account, but the tax division of DOJ has also been decimated as well. The people who would ordinarily bring the major cases of tax fraud and tax avoidance against typically the very higher end of the taxpayer spectrum. But all the lawyers who would prosecute that have been fired or forced out as well. And so I guess it's still true that you're breaking the law. It's just nobody's going to be able to do anything about it.
So this is
These are some fun guys.
Washington Post version of the New York Times story. And you can tell it's the Washington Post because they don't bother with the Mr. garbage. Epstein files have brought a wave of resignations and investigations. The massive trove, totaling more than 3 million documents, has roiled Europe, leading to resignations and criminal inquiries and drawn further scrutiny toward Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, the former prince and brother of King Charles III. Again, the Andrew formerly known as Prince. Mountbatten-Windsor. They don't say Mr. Mountbatten-Windsor.
Senor. Mountbatten. Yeah. What's her name? Is
potential
get in on the act.
The trouble with this iPhone is you can't just shut this off easy.
You can't?
Anyway, Mountbatten-Windsor, who's calling me wanting to know why I'm talking about it,
Hello?
was arrested Thursday on suspicion of misconduct in office. In the U.S., however, professional exits and investigations named in the files have not taken place on the same scale. Only a few high-profile people, such as Kathy Rumler, an official in the Obama White House, have stepped down from their jobs.
Yeah.
And here's a list of some of the prominent figures who have resigned.
Okay.
Peter Attia, who was scheduled to be at CBS with
still is, I think,
with Barry Weiss.
Right.
Attia stepped down from his role as chief science officer for a protein bar brand, and he's no longer advisor to the company. And he apologized.
I'm sorry
and,
about the
she
protein.
Announced he was going to be a CBS News editor contributor, but CBS News hasn't responded yet.
Okay, so we don't know if he's out there.
Saudi Arabian Sultan, Sarah Ferguson, Larry Summers.
Yeah, Sarah Ferguson.
Others you've not heard of.
Formerly,
Brad Karp is an important one. He resigned from Paul Weiss et al., longtime chairman of the law firm.
Right.
Who had spent their time trying to settle with Trump, and now we know why.
Yeah. I don't know why we don't associate them anymore, but Sarah Ferguson married to Andrew previously, right? I mean, that's a freaky situation. They're both in the Epstein files
that, she
separately.
Did it for the money.
Yes, which, I mean, again, as
Melania
we say,
has a word to say about that.
Yeah. I mean, people do it for the money all the time, and I mean, I don't know why we keep forgetting that. Like, how could a royal family member be involved in this outrageous, disgusting behavior? Well, typically that was, for the first couple hundred years of it, that was pretty princely behavior, and she married for the money. You're kidding? Seriously? No way. How could anybody ever have done that? That was like the purpose of royal marriage. So, okay. Anyway, yeah, that's why we did this whole No More Kings thing until we stopped doing it.
Well, there's no more Kings rallies now. No more Kings since 1776. The
original
signs line our streets.
Yeah.
So we're still doing it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, we're still rebelling against it, but we still have work to do because there are more kings.
It's always people that want to be king.
Yeah. It's, as they say, good to be the king for you.
Yeah. Anyway.
By the way, that was about rape, too.
It's a story, Jerry.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. We got that covered. So go away. Don't come back tomorrow. We'll see. I won't see you next Wednesday. I don't have a Monday thing to play for you, but anyway,
we'll have to work on that.
Yeah, okay, and I'll spend the rest of the day on various angles on this accountability thing. It's been very interesting watching everybody comment, and yes, it is a particularly special moment as Trump plays up the 250th anniversary. And again, I think we've just abandoned the attempt to have the word for it, but semi-sesquicentennial or something like that. Half of a 500, basically. But anyway, to have this 250th anniversary of American independence and the No More Kings thing come up in the context of even Britain is arresting or, deroiling, as you were saying. You said, oh, by the way, you didn't mention that it has roiled Europe, but it has also deroiled Europe, or at least part of it. But they're arresting their princes. And then, of course, just elsewhere around the world.
And decommissioning their princesses.
Yes, that's true, too. And I think, where's the comment? There's been a couple of really good encapsulations of it on social media. Julian Sanchez, for instance, just saying that this was particularly spectacular to see in light of this, but also in light of the fact that Andrew is arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office, and Sanchez and a couple others I've seen mentioning, that's specifically what our Supreme Court very recently said couldn't happen to a president. With its, as he says, fabricated out of thin air immunity doctrine, they've actually made American presidents less accountable than literal royalty, except, no longer literal royalty. And I think another version of it, but yeah, saying this is specifically, here was Matt Steinglass. It's notable that Andrew has been arrested for misconduct in public office, which is precisely what the U.S. Supreme Court decided no American president can ever be charged with. Because if you're doing it in public office, it can be, excused as an official act. I'm sure that the defenders of the decision would say, well, that one we wouldn't say. But you know what? Everybody's accusing Donald Trump of it right now, more or less to his face, and nobody seems to be moving to take advantage of the opportunity the Supreme Court has given us here. All right. It's making things tough, making it difficult to be an American at the moment. So fight on. All right. We'll see you on Monday, Greg, and I can move on to some of the longer versions of the stories you've summarized for us. I want to head over to the Guardian's coverage you mentioned of what was happening in Korea, because we've given the Koreans short shrift on something fun and exciting today. And a reminder that we should be doing this as well. Maybe we have to wait until he's out of office, although they took some proactive measures to throw him out of office. South Korea's former president Yoon Suk-yeol jailed for life for leading insurrection. It is possible Trump may try to pardon him at some point, but we don't know how effective it's going to be. And please don't tell me that presidential pardons aren't effective internationally. That doesn't mean he won't try to pardon the guy. Anyway, I don't know whether he's given him enough money to get on the pardon radar. We could spend the whole rest of the show doing that, too, by the way. Rafael Rashid is the reporter who produced this piece for The Guardian. Ex-leader sentenced to life imprisonment with hard labor, by the way, over failed martial law declaration in 2024. We have somebody we could do that with as well. Although you could sentence him to hard labor. I don't know if any of the hard labor is going to get done. Maybe in Korea, it's possible, but it wouldn't be the case here with our guy. South Korean court has sentenced the former president Yoon Suk-yeol to life imprisonment with labor. This time they left out the hard part. And it is The Guardian, so Labour, which, by the way, I included the U in the proper spelling of womp womp this morning as I saw the Andrew news. Not Prince, but other thing, Andrew. Womp womp ought to be spelled with a U. I considered putting an E at the end of it, but I thought that was overkill. Anyway, South Korean court sentenced the former president to life imprisonment with labor over his failed martial law declaration in December of 2024, finding him guilty of leading an insurrection. Oh, no. And making him the first elected head of state in that country's democratic era. And that's important, too. I mean, they have done this before, but not during their democratic era. That's key, actually. To the first elected head of state in the country's democratic era to receive the maximum custodial sentence. The Seoul Central District Court found that Yoon's declaration of martial law on December 3rd, 2024 constituted insurrection carried out with the intent to disrupt the constitutional order. Judge Ji Qui-yoon said the purpose was to send troops to the National Assembly to blockade the Assembly Hall and arrest key figures, including the Assembly Speaker and party leaders, thereby preventing lawmakers from gathering to deliberate or vote. In sentencing Yoon on Thursday, that's an important point there, the sending of the troops to try to prevent the Constitutional Assembly of their legislative branch. For those of you still worried about whether Trump can or can't try to steal the midterms, and of course, pointing to the rules. Well, structurally speaking, he can't do this. Well, yeah, I don't think he intends to do it structurally. So there is that. Although I do want to go back to one of the articles that Greg mentioned yesterday that made the argument that I didn't find in total all that convincing, even though there was a good caveat in there about how Trump can't steal the midterm elections. There was at one very salient point in there that I think makes the whole thing worth revisiting and mentioning on the record, and we'll do that probably after the break. We'll read on through the Guardian's piece until our top of the hour break. In sentencing Yoon on Thursday, the court pointed to his lack of apology throughout the proceedings. I guess that's extremely important to them. His unjustified refusal to attend hearings and the massive social costs his actions inflicted on South Korean society. And we're having a failure of civil society here right now. I keep reminding you, I'm impressed with that having been pointed out by Josh Marshall. And it's been a while. Anyway, the court said the martial law greatly damaged the political neutrality of the military and police and caused South Korea's political standing and credibility in the international community to decline, leaving society politically divided and experiencing extreme confrontation. Interesting. I don't know how much of that is faithful in translation or not, but that's an important part. You know, you've damaged us internationally. People think much poor. You've robbed us of international prestige. I guess here we wave that off. Well, I don't know. If you can't put a dollar figure on it, we don't know about it. But, you know, there are still a few people who actually are concerned with your international reputation. And I guess they're Korean and not us. The court opted for life imprisonment over the death penalty. Wow. Noting that while the crime was grave, Yoon's planning did not appear meticulous. He had attempted to limit the use of physical force, and most of his plans ultimately failed. So there's some hope in there for Trump. He definitely wouldn't appear to have been meticulous in his planning. The use of physical force, I'm sure he could have been doing more, and you know, you can't. It's hard to believe if you're in Minneapolis that there could be more, but there could be wholesale murder, believe me. Also, of course, most of his plans ultimately failed, which was the chief argument in the article that we read yesterday, but not the one that I want to return to that article for, because there was a better one. In a historical digression, the judge traced the history of insurrection law and cited the 1649 execution of England's King Charles I, not this one, who led troops into Parliament to establish that even heads of state can commit insurrection by attacking the legislature. No pun intended, heads of state, because we know what happened to that guy's head. The verdict was broadcast live on national television, capturing Yoon briefly smiling on arrival and later displaying no visible reaction to the sentence as it was delivered. And I am late on the music, and we got that to fix in post. Dang it. All right, that means I'm going to have to try and stop talking early on our heading into the break, because that'll make things much easier. But I want to tell you that under South Korean law, the charge of leading an insurrection carries 3 possible penalties: death, life imprisonment with labor, or life imprisonment without labor. That is interesting. I know, but the 4th one, life imprisonment without lunch. All right. Well, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. And let's see. I had hoped to get more through the Korea article, and I think I'll continue with it. But you know, there's just too many asides, but too many things I was reminded of, because this is a very, it's drawing together a lot of historical strands here, and it's important and valuable. And I'm so glad to see that they did that. To give, I mean, it was almost like it was a message to the West as well, bringing in the execution of Charles I, discussing the nature of the planning for this modern insurrection, etc. A very big hint to the West that, we're leading the way. You should follow us on this and clean up your own house without actually imposing it on us. But a good suggestion, nonetheless. But yeah, I also, by the way, on the exit, very impressed with recounting the 3 options: death, life with labor, or life without labor. And I mean, I guess obviously I missed the better joke would have been to say life without supper, like go to bed without supper, but for life. But lunch somehow. I mean, it's part of the working day. It's right in the middle there. It seems like maybe a worse punishment. Anyway, I mean, it's just interesting to add that as a 3rd category. All right. I mean, it seems like a subcategory: death or life imprisonment with some other conditions attached to it. It doesn't seem like it needs to be its own category. Prosecutors had sought the death penalty. How do you like that? I would have thought they would have foregone that from the beginning, arguing that Yoon committed a grave destruction of constitutional order by mobilizing troops to surround Parliament and attempting to arrest political opponents during the 6-hour crisis. I'm just saying that our 6-hour crisis, I guess, continues. And although the January 6th plot fell apart in this country, Trump is currently trying his best to arrest political opponents, up to and including the opponents who were investigating the January 6th. Their crime being investigating whether or not we ought to charge Donald Trump with insurrection over January 6th. And I still run into opposition that I just assume as, I don't know, either paid trolls or bots or just annoying people on social media. I actually ran into some, usually on Blue Sky, for instance, the vast majority of people don't respond with surprise and outrage to people who are saying, oh, the January 6th issue continues to this day. That's just mostly for 90% of Blue Sky a given. But I found the bot who said, oh, you're telling me you think you think the insurrection is still underway. They're physically surrounding the Capitol right now. No, no. But do I think January 6th continues on? Yes. They're arresting the people who investigated January 6th right now, today. They're surrounding their houses with mobs of FBI agents. I mean, it's actually not that difficult to contemplate. The verdict over in South Korea came 14 months after events that marked the most serious threat to South Korea's democracy in decades. The charges stem, of course, from events on the night of December 3rd, 2024, when prosecutors said Yoon attempted to use military force to paralyze the legislature, arrest political opponents, and seize control of the National Election Commission. Hello. Just wondering if, federalize the elections and I'm going to seize the ballots from Fulton County. And for a while there, Sidney Powell was telling me to seize the ballots and the machines from everywhere because Italian military satellites told me to. And invisible clauses in the Constitution visible only in Fort Lauderdale, Florida as well. Now we're up to that part. All right. Yoon claimed he was rooting out anti-state forces, you see, and alleged election fraud without providing evidence. Oh, no. Within hours of the declaration, 190 lawmakers broke through military and police cordons to pass an emergency resolution lifting martial law. So P.S., by the way, the people who broke into the Capitol in Korea were the legislators trying to do the actual legitimate thing. Whereas here in the United States, the people who broke into the Capitol were the rioters trying to not do the legitimate thing and, in fact, do the fake thing, complete with fake documents declaring Donald Trump the winner. We keep forgetting about that. I won't let you forget about it. I say about it just about every other day. Anyway, Parliament impeached Yoon within 11 days. We decided, though, we should probably take a Valentine's Day break. And the Constitutional Court removed him from office 4 months later. Outside the courthouse, hundreds of Yoon supporters waving South Korean and U.S. flags. That's interesting that they would choose that. And I'm surprised they didn't also have some Confederate flags. Bet they did, actually. Chanting Yoon again. Initially cheered when the judge dismissed some prosecution evidence, but turned hostile as the ruling progressed. Hello, everybody. I'm the judge in this case, as you know, and I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is I'm throwing out some of the charges. Yay, Yoon again. The bad news is the ones that I am convicting him on are going to carry the labor part of option 3. Life imprisonment with labor. That might be option 2. Boo. That one we don't like. When the sentence was announced, some collapsed in tears, crying, the country is finished. So they have their cult there, too. About 500 meters away, progressive groups erupted in cheers and embraced one another, though some expressed disappointment that the death penalty had not been imposed. It me. As the kids used to say, but now they're 20 plus. Anyway, Yoon faces 6 additional criminal trials. Boy, they really do it in style there. 2 of which arise from the martial law crisis, including a treason charge alleging that he ordered drone incursions into North Korean airspace in an attempt to provoke a confrontation that would justify military rule. Wow, pretty dangerous. I might not have done that one. Anyway, he was already been sentenced to 5 years imprisonment for obstructing his own arrest. Try and untangle that one. Okay, Thursday's verdict follows a series of related rulings that formally established the events of December 3rd constituted an insurrection. In January, the former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo was handed a 23-year prison sentence in a ruling that described the martial law attempt as a self-coup. We used the term autogolpe here many years ago. By elected power... That's so. A martial law self-coup by elected power that was more dangerous than traditional uprisings. More, not less. The sentence far exceeded prosecutors' 15-year demand, indicating judicial willingness to impose severe penalties. Yeah, like the no-dinner penalty. On February 12th, the former Interior Minister Lee Sang-min was jailed for 7 years for his role in the insurrection, including relaying Yoon's orders to cut power and water to media outlets. That's giving Trump some ideas. Legal experts said the rulings created a sentencing environment that made the most severe punishment more likely in Yoon's case. The court also sentenced 7 co-defendants, Kim Yong-hyun, the former defense minister, to 30 years, No Sang-won, a former intelligence commander, to 18 years, Cho Ji-ho, I'm really probably mangling all these names, the former police chief, to 12 years, and Kim Bong-sik, the former Seoul police chief, to 10 years. Mok Hyun-tae, a police commander, received 3 years. 2 defendants, Kim Yong-gun and Yoon Seung-young, were acquitted. So some people got away with it there. By the way, illustrated with an anti-Yoon protester dressed as Batman in Seoul last April. That is interesting to see as well. Very American style. They didn't get around to the inflatable frog costumes there. They went straight to the superheroes. Yoon's legal team released a statement calling the verdict a predetermined conclusion in a show trial, saying they could not bring themselves to respect the judgment. Oh well. They accused the judiciary of kneeling to incited public opinion and political power and applying double standards, pointing to President Lee Jae-myung's suspended trials and opposition politicians acquitted on illegal evidence grounds. I didn't get off on a technicality, so it's a double standard. The legal team vowed to fight to the end, saying truth would eventually be revealed in the court of history. Yoon is expected to repeal. Now, if he runs for office and wins the presidency again and they install him, we have to take back all that we said about South Korea, but it doesn't make us look any better. Life imprisonment carries no fixed release date, with parole theoretically possible after 20 years on demonstration of good conduct and remorse. But part of his problem has been the lack of remorse, I guess. The former president, Park Geun-hye, was initially sentenced to a combined 32 years in prison for corruption and related offenses in 2018. The term was later reduced on appeal and ultimately erased by a presidential pardon in 2021. Was he pardoned by the guy who's going in now? Wow. In 1996, the military dictators Chun Do-hwan and Roh Tae-woo, this is what a terrible choice this was for me to do this, received death and a 22.5-year sentences, respectively, for their roles in the 1979 coup and subsequent massacre in Gwangju. The sentences were later reduced on appeal. Both men were eventually pardoned. Wow. Every South Korean president who has served a prison sentence has ultimately been pardoned, which is not the flex you think it is necessarily, but there you go. In other words, they're sentencing ex-presidents with some regularity in South Korea. That's ridiculous. What a third world, S-hole country. Well, they're also pardoning them. I kind of like the sound of that. All right. So I mentioned that there was an article that I wanted to go back to from yesterday that Greg had brought up that I had some differences with, but I feel like I owe them a second look because there was at least one, I thought, very worthwhile point. And this was something, from the Bulwark, Nicholas Grossman's Trump Can't Steal the Midterms. The case for being vigilant without panicking. And I want to read the beginning of the article because I thought there was a good caveat in there. And then maybe I'll skip down and grab what I think is the toughest point to refute, and therefore maybe the best one in my mind, which means I'm wrong. to distill from this article. But here's the beginning of his piece, word for word. Donald Trump will not be able to steal this November's midterm elections. He and his allies will keep trying to manipulate the midterms in their favor, which Democrats, pro-democracy activists, and all Americans who care about our constitutional system should keep working to counter. But he won't succeed. No matter how much Team Trump disregards norms and laws, there's no mechanism for taking over state elections, reversing losses, or preventing newly elected members of Congress from sitting, especially if Republicans lose by substantial margins. Okay, troublesome territory for me there, but vigilance is warranted, but excessive fear plays into the authoritarians' hands. Good point. I think over-leveraged a little bit too. Like, well, what makes the fear excessive? Again, my own discussions about these things with people. There were certainly people who had this fear or acknowledged this fear, but instead said, I can't really do too much about, like, if it comes to the point where they're surrounding the Congress with troops and forcing their way in, we have bigger problems. I see what you mean, but, it's not a bigger problem. It's the same problem that we had at the beginning. It's bigger than you think you can do anything about. But it's the exact problem I'm talking about, so I don't know whether it's really a bigger one or not. But then eventually the discussion got around to the point of, well, I don't know, not me, the other person, I don't know what exactly to do about addressing, well, what if they just throw out everything on the books? All the laws are out the window. What do we do then? I don't know. So in the meantime, I'll focus on the things that I could do to, say, run up the margins such that Republicans lose by the substantial margins that were just mentioned, and therefore the cheating is that much more obvious. Okay, fine. No objection to that. And then the person said, sort of offhandedly, like, well, obviously this won't be you. I'll just leave the how to imagine or what to how to deal with the as yet unimagined scenarios that Trump might try to leverage to the people who have expertise in that area. There we are. That's me. That's the area where I do my work, trying to imagine the various ways that they could make the unimaginable imaginable to the right sector of our population, such that they get away with it, either because they stun the rest of us into inaction or get the elite press to sign on and say, well, it's still a Mr. situation. We're still going to say that Mr. So-and-so, it hasn't been proven that XYZ. And so therefore, what can you do? Like, that's still a serious reality in our country. But then more caveats. He says this is not a call for complacency. Backsliding from democracy into authoritarianism is greased by people saying, calm down, it'll be fine. The institutions will handle it. He doesn't mean it. Someone will stop him. I'm not doing that. He says that he's not doing that, but I don't know whether he is not doing that, but it's footnoted. So how do we know that he's not doing it? There's an actual note here that reads, not that my bona fides here matter as much as my argument does, but if it's useful to demonstrate that I'm not Pollyanna-ish. Interesting. I think I used that term somewhere along the line and over the weekend. In the summer of 2020, I was among those warning that Trump would try to steal the election by lying about fraud with mail-in ballots. That November, I broke down the plot step by step as it was happening. On January 5th, 2021, I chastised Ted Cruz and other Republicans lying about the election for making the unthinkable a lot more thinkable. I was among the earliest to call the January 6th attack an insurrection and sedition. I've warned about voter intimidation, and I've repeatedly warned that the 2024 election was effectively an up or down vote on constitutional democracy, all of which is to say I'd put my record on this stuff up against anyone's. Yeah, okay. Those are all good things. And it leads me to wonder, well, why do you think that things can't be stolen here? And he makes some arguments about why, but again, I think they largely depend on institutional roles that I'm not certain anybody can or would live up to. It's true that it was easier to try to steal one election, even if it was for the presidency, than it would be to try to steal some number up to and including 530, well, not 535, but 435 plus another 33 or so if you include the Senate races. It's certainly more difficult to get away with declaring 435 elections by fraud or some number, even more than 2 will probably cause problems. But again, we are at the point where it might be just an absolute tossing out of civil law and declaring martial law at some point. Could we find ourselves where South Korea did? Yes, we almost did, and other countries do all the time. Why not? So anyway, he goes on to make the point that, don't comply in advance, certainly, and remember that you have people and officers and institutions that can be leaned on to stand in the way. That's all true too. But really, the best points, some of the good points that are made along here is this one. Trump has had a number of boasts in this area that have proven untrue, or at least that he hasn't been able to back up. So that's interesting. And we'll read it this way. After a year in power, the Trump regime has made serious gains against constitutional democracy, usurping some of Congress's power of the purse, corrupting federal law enforcement, defying a great many court orders, 4,000 plus, in fact, turning ICE into a secret police force that disappears people without due process. Yeah. Killing people abroad without legal authorization or legitimate cause. And P.S. killing people at home, too. But they've taken big losses, too. This is worth noting. In October of last year, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem declared ICE would be all over, quote, all over the Super Bowl. And then at the Super Bowl in February, ICE was nowhere to be seen. I guess they forgot about that. But that's a good point. Trump officials were left whining on social media instead about Bad Bunny's halftime performance. Like there was no ICE invasion of the Super Bowl or even harassing of it from the outside. The NFL saying, get the hell out of here, I guess. As over 128 million viewers watched the wildly popular Puerto Rican musician, the president called it an affront to America. That part we don't really need to know about. But Trump couldn't do anything about it. And there was no ICE all over the Super Bowl. In 2025, Trump tried to get late-night comedian Jimmy Kimmel thrown off the air, but a negative consumer reaction prompted Disney to put him back on. Trump hated that Democratic veterans like Senator Mark Kelly publicly explained that military personnel should follow the law, and he tried to put him in jail, but the manufactured charges flopped with the grand jury. Amazingly, not even one grand juror agreed the government now met the low standard of probable cause to proceed to trial. I didn't know it was unanimous, but that's good news. Trump didn't want his political allies and endorsed candidates to lose to Democrats last November, but many did. Most notably with Zoran Mamdani becoming mayor of New York City and Abigail Spanberger becoming governor of Virginia. Trump lost sycophants who collaborated with his anti-immigrant campaign, replaced by critics who oppose it. Procedurally, the 2025 elections went smoothly. Electorally, Trump critics performed very well, shattering post-2024 narratives about a sweeping demographic and cultural shift in MAGA's favor. That points to larger patterns. Since Donald Trump first took office in January 2017, there have been 2 midterms, 5 off-year elections, and numerous special elections, and he's never really, this is the best point, never really gone to the mat for anyone but himself. That I can't argue with, really. The larger point of all of this being, would Trump interfere in an election to extend his own power? Yes. All right. Would he do it in a midterm election to extend his own power, but indirectly by going to the mat, as they say, for other people, other Republicans? That he really hasn't done. So it's highly questionable whether he would use his most extreme tactics and extend his authoritarian power grabbing to its maximum that we've seen so far anyway, on behalf of other Republicans. That I might agree, yeah, maybe not. The only wrinkle in that being, well, I don't know. I think he may still think he's doing it for himself, in that he's doing it to prevent impeachment and removal. But on the other hand, he may just say, well, I don't know, whatever, let them do what they're going to do. If they try to impeach me and remove me, then I'm going to say, well, martial law, I'm not leaving. Maybe that's what I'll try. But, I don't know whether he would. I don't know whether it would be effective if he tried it. But it may be that he likes to saber rattle on others' behalf. But when push comes to shove, doing the thing, it really has to be for him and for him directly. That's been the case. That's been his track record. So, okay. Right. I'll read that again. There's been during the Trump era, right? 2 midterms, 5 off-year elections, numerous special elections. He's never really gone to the mat for anyone but himself. He lies and cries fraud a lot, but most vociferously for himself, even when he wins. And he went way beyond legal means, only in 2020 and 21, attempting a coup after losing re-election. Yeah, but that was pretty serious, right? Yes. But that's when he really put the hammer down, when it was for himself directly. But as some will note, he did regain power despite how January 6th turned out. Yes, exactly. He regained power by availing himself of legitimate mechanisms, although I got questions about that too. Winning the GOP nomination via primaries, then winning the Electoral College, plus a plurality of the popular vote. He somehow didn't go around the election or invent a different mechanism to become president. True, although I don't know, man. How did it happen that he was able to be on the ballot, stay on the ballot, win the ballot, and assume office? There was an awful lot of manipulation, pretty damn close, but not as showy as the Capitol insurrection, up to and including the invention of a doctrine that never existed before. Absolute, total, complete presidential immunity now and in the past and into the future. And, I don't know how long that can stand. Plus, of course, facial reinterpretation of the 14th Amendment and insurrection clauses and God knows what else has just been defined out of the law. I don't know if I agree with his assessment of those things having been left largely undamaged. I don't think that's really true. But the best thing I'll take away from it is, well, he doesn't really do stuff if it isn't immediately to his benefit. Yeah, I guess there's that. Anyway, just a reminder along the way that, there are some things you can imagine. Well, a more procedurally versed person might imagine about how they could still disrupt congressional elections. It's easier to see in the presidential sense, but I don't know. He sort of dismisses that offhand in a weird way too. He definitely acknowledges that that's something different in kind and in degree, but it still comes down to the same thing. I think I probably read some of his own gaming out of the January 2021 insurrection scenario and what they would try and do. And I think that was our big hang up about all of it. Well, even if he comes with fake electoral college certificates, you still can't get them to the floor. I just don't know how he does it. But, and then if they do that, this one will get in the way, that thing can get in the way. All true, but they did in fact attempt doing that. And I just can't let anybody forget that. The guy is sitting in office having forged electoral college votes. I don't know if it really makes sense. Can I really establish that I don't think he'll try something super crazy? Well, there's no mechanism for it. Well, there's no mechanism for a second electoral college either. They just invented the mechanism. Well, take the mechanism there is, copy it, say ours is the legitimate one and yours is the illegitimate one, and roll the dice and see which one the people believe in the end. And, if we can command the military in the meantime to lean in one direction or another, great, we'll do that. So I don't know. There's very little I would rule out at this point. That's all I'm saying. All right. Moving on to a couple of the other things that have been served up for us today. I'll circle back to the Epstein sphere as the break comes up, just to borrow from Ryan Goodman, who put together a nice thread on Blue Sky compiling the other places in the world and the other sectors of the world in which Epstein accountability seems to be happening. There is, of course, the UK example, but he adds to it reminders that they are pursuing accountability in Norway, where the former PM was charged with gross corruption over Epstein links, in France, where Paris prosecutors opened 2 Epstein-linked probes and called on victims to come forward, in Latvia, which we've forgotten about in all this, Latvia launching a human trafficking investigation after Epstein file release, plus a wave of resignations of individuals implicated in the Epstein files, even here in the United States. We've mentioned them before. There's still more. We'll be right back. Hi, it's me, David. I mostly do the commercials around here, too. Have you ever thought you'd like to do a show like this one, but a lot shorter? Maybe without necessarily waking up early each day, or even, let's say, working at it each day? Well, now you can, sort of, and by now, I mean pretty much any time you want, because what I'm talking about is you recording a news story, sharing an essay, or otherwise contributing your thoughts on these crazy times with the rest of us, and with any digital recording device. Make the show your own, as I like to say. Send me a digital file of your recording, a link to any source material, and a note about how you'd like to be identified on the air at KagroX, that's KAGROX, at gmail.com, and I'll take it from there. Don't worry about those ums and ahs either. I sure don't, but I'll even do my best to edit your submission down into a nice-sounding dispatch from the field. So come on, everybody, make the show your own. Help me prove once and for all that I'm not just imagining this audience. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Thanks to Rosalind McGregor for forwarding us something. We'll have to see whether we can use it. She's got a nomination for a sound clip that we can use for a See You on Monday situation. And guess what? She also does, in fact, refer to Andrew Windsor Mountbatten as Andrew the Royal, formerly known as Prince. You got to use that. I think that situation demands it. Although, I guess, yeah, technically now we're not even allowed to say the royal formerly known. He's not royal. He was stripped of his royal status, I believe, which I guess maybe, does that take the edge off of seeing him arrested? I mean, we're all satisfied to see that happen. Not satisfied, encouraged to see that happen. Although I do want to do a little bit of reading, because I did see people, not even necessarily offering it as a defense of Andrew, but an important thing to check out. Like, we're all assuming that, well, there'd be one reason and one reason only why you would be arrested for something associated with the Epstein files. But as it turns out, there's at least the claim, and I have yet to read these articles, and I'll work my way through them, of course. You will too. Maybe you've already seen it. That they came up with something like non-sexual to arrest him for, sharing of some sort of privileged or secret information with Epstein, presumably for some kind of investment situation, which is bad, and you should go to jail for it, and I'll take it, though. Alphonse Capone style, if necessary. They may eventually get to the rest of the stuff, or this could help them crack open the other things and then arrest them for the other stuff too, but I don't know. I guess we offer that caveat. Anyway, where were we? We're in the middle of reading Ryan Goodman's compilation of the other activity, the other accountability activities swirling around the Epstein files, even if current officialdom will not let it come to rest on, well, current officialdom, I guess. Let's see. So there was also some other people chiming in on the thread saying that Norway's ambassador to Jordan had resigned. as Epstein left her sons $10 million. Wow, I don't think I know about that one. Norway's ambassador to Jordan, Mona Juul, or Juul, perhaps, Juul, it's Norway, so Juul, resigns as Epstein left her sons $10 million. Norway's former prime minister, that's the guy we'd heard about before, charged with corruption, and Mette-Marit, maybe? I don't know. That's the crown princess of Norway. They've got royal problems there, too. Mentioned in 1,000 plus Epstein files, including, I guess, something having to do with her son's rape charges. So there's some foul activity happening among the royalty in Europe. They should all be roiled and deroiled, I guess. There's some documentary evidence attached to this. Let's see. Norway announced Mona Juul's resignation after a report on... Okay, so there was all of that. The International Peace Institute, a New York-based think tank headed by Ms. Juul's husband, Terje? Terry, is that like Norwegian Terry? Oh, goodness gracious. I forget about how to pronounce all these things. Rod Larsen? Maybe. I don't know. Goodness. That reported by the Independent over in the UK. All I have here is a screen grab about that. I mean, I guess it just reaches everywhere was really the point about this. But now this thread that becomes something from Norwegian insiders talking all about all of this stuff. And, well, every country, local boy and or girl makes bad, I guess, is a storyline everywhere. Just sort of pointing that out. So Ryan Goodman's thread is a good place to start with that. I will share that with Scott. Are you listening, Scott? How you feeling, Scott? Hopefully in good shape and available to help us with the summary today. Maybe the last one this week, too. Because although now that you're not feeling well, I hope you're feeling well enough to go and do all this other things that are on your calendar for today. Because I know that's important to, like having an income and all of that stuff. All right. What other fun things have I got to add to all of you? All of these stories. So many things happening. I have got to remind myself of even what they are. Yeah, we should be visiting what's happening in U.S. courtrooms. There are a couple of stories that I'm sure we socked away here that, all right, here's the one I wanted to start with. And then there was another that I'll add to it. New York Times, Justice Department lawyer is found in contempt by federal judge. We've been wondering when this was going to happen, and people have gone right up to the cusp of this and backed away for various reasons. And this is coming out of Minnesota. So that's of some additional interest here. The ruling out of Minnesota marks a new level of judicial concern. Well, same level, but new action given that level of concern, I might say, about the Trump administration's lack of compliance with judges' orders in immigration cases. This goes to Boasberg's complaint, which of course leads us down the path of the DOJ's attempt to actually sanction Boasberg for making that complaint. The recent article that we did not read but cited the headline of 4,400 cases cited in which the Trump administration was defying judicial orders, and a prior discussion about a different case also arising out of Minnesota, during which federal judges attempted or threatened to hold DOJ officials in contempt, but then backed away from it by allowing for, as judges will do, allowing for the officials to cure their contempt by actually complying with the order. But as we know, if there's 4,400 plus cases of defying orders out there, someone was eventually going to defy enough orders for a long enough period of time that they would also be threatened with contempt. And here it is. Matthias Schwartz and Seamus Hughes teaming up on this piece from yesterday. A federal judge in Minnesota found a Trump administration lawyer in civil contempt of court on Wednesday, a significant escalation between the judiciary and the executive branch amid a ballooning caseload triggered, of course, by President Trump's immigration raids and novel interpretations of law. Yes, sometimes after the fact. But yeah, interesting point. And just, I'll remind you, there's criminal contempt of court and civil contempt. And I guess we're mostly trained to think of, well, surely the criminal contempt is the worse of the two. And civil, we just, come to think of as somehow different and lighter in import, but it's not. And as between the two, in a situation like this, you'll actually probably appreciate civil contempt more. And by the way, I guess it's questionable whether a pardon is available for civil contempt. After all, the pardons are generally limited to criminal activity and offenses against the United States, whereas civil penalties, perhaps not. Anyway, you have this. The reason that civil contempt tends to be the more fearsome, perhaps, of the two is that criminal contempt, generally speaking, you're sentenced to a period of imprisonment as a result of your contempt. Whereas with civil contempt, you can be imprisoned, but you're imprisoned as an incentive to make you comply, or fined as an incentive to make you comply. And it's an ongoing and theoretically limitless penalty until you comply. Like, we can punish you for non-compliance. This is what happened with, we didn't get the punishment out of it, I don't think, but this is what happened with Steve Bannon. You've done this thing and defied us. We're going to punish you for your defiance for a defined period of time. Whereas the other one, civil contempt, is, hey, I ordered you to do this thing. I'm not just going to punish you for not doing it. I'm going to keep you in prison until you do it. The point here is to get the compliance, not hand out the punishment. And so it can be much worse for a person caught in that vice. Anyway, back to the article. According to the ruling by Judge Laura M. Provenzino, we don't think we've called her name before, of Federal District Court in Minnesota, the government failed to return identification documents of some kind. It's just put in scare quotes there. Don't know exactly which documents they were, but they're ID documents, belonging to one Rigoberto Soto Jimenez, a detained immigrant whom she had ordered to be released with all of his property returned, like a normal human being. The judge ordered a $500 daily fine imposed on Matthew Isihara, an administration lawyer, like not a big name, maybe not even a political appointee, just a line prosecutor, but that's the person who's responsible. You put your name on the line on behalf of the Trump administration. How long do you want this to go on? But $500 daily fine on Matthew Isihara for each day that those documents are not returned, beginning on Friday. So I suppose that's a curative opportunity, too, if they go and say, well, I don't want this to happen. I don't know whether they'll listen to Matthew Isihara saying, hey, I'm going to get fined $500 a day. Like the Trump administration could say, who cares? Or they might say, oh, don't worry, we'll pay you back, and then not pay him back. Or they may say, all right, we don't want this civil contempt loss on the books. So fine, give them the documents, but wait until the last possible minute of Friday. At which point they will say, fine, we won't fine you $500 a day. And we'll all say, oh, but, if you get the win, you get the win. In Minnesota and elsewhere, Immigration and Customs Enforcement has been arresting thousands of immigrants who have lived in the United States for years after entering the country illegally. Judge Provenzino's order is ready for the statement from DOJ, a lawless abuse of judicial power, Daniel N. Rosen, U.S. Attorney for the District of Minnesota, said in a statement. So what? You're wrong. It's a bad statement. It's not at all a lawless abuse of judicial power. It's a normal and everyday exercise of judicial power. And not only that, but you've been given, again, the curative opportunity So he should just shut up and take it. But he has to say something. So he says, Yargle Bargle, this is lawless. You're the one acting lawlessly. You've been ordered to produce this documents. You aren't doing it. You're the lawless one. An online profile belonging to Mr. Ishihara identified him as a military judge advocate, now detailed as a special assistant U.S. attorney. That makes it even worse in my view. The case docket indicates that the contempt ruling came after a 93-minute hearing. Just a reminder, we mentioned this story, several weeks ago, that the huge shortage of line prosecutors caused by mass resignations and firing and doji purging of the Department of Justice, they decided they would deal with by stealing JAG lawyers from the military and saying, poof, you're an immigration attorney now. And not only that, we're going to order you to do things that are going to get you held in civil contempt of court and fined $500 a day. And we may or may not actually have your back when it comes time to deal with that. So I'm sure there's plenty of people who are tired of that and who may be taking their first opportunity to exit the military as well. But does that upset Donald Trump that there are no lawyers and no military lawyers? Probably not. Good thing, actually. Then there's fewer people to catch us. An online profile belonging to that's just what we read, told us he was a JAG lawyer. Mr. Soto Jimenez, according to court filings, is a Mexican citizen who's lived in Minnesota since 2018 with his spouse, who is a lawful permanent resident. He was arrested on January 14th. Like many others, he filed a writ of habeas corpus, a legal challenge that asks the courts to consider whether his detention has any legal basis. But luckily, he filed it fast enough. They didn't fly him to Texas quickly enough so that he couldn't file that his motion was at least disfavored if it was filed, if you moved him to the Fifth Circuit. Like many others, he filed a writ of habeas corpus. The government's lack of respect for court rulings stemming from such petitions has been raised by judges in the District of Minnesota, where the chief judge compiled a list of nearly 100 violations of court orders in habeas cases alone since January 1st. And in New Jersey, where the Justice Department admitted 52 violations since December 5th. Judge Provenzino, who spent years as a federal prosecutor, had ordered the government to release Mr. Soto Jimenez from custody in Minnesota by February 13th. An order she issued on Tuesday indicates that the government failed not only to return his documents, but also to release him in Minnesota as she had initially specified. In an interview, Aaron M. Linz, Mr. Soto Jimenez's attorney, said that the government had released his client without his documents in El Paso, where he was being held. So they did eventually move him down to Texas regardless, just not before they filed the habeas petition successfully in Minneapolis. But interesting that too probably was ordered not to happen, but they went ahead and did it anyway. But we'll see whether there's any contempt coming from that one. Anyway, so they kicked him out of the detention center, which is a good thing, but left him without any transportation home and stuck in El Paso. And he has had to stay in a shelter overnight before finally flying home. I guess they raised the money to bring him back. She said the government had located her client's documents and that she expected to receive them on Thursday. So that sounds nice. That may be them taking advantage of the curative opportunity. Hey, we found him just before you started finding us. We couldn't find him the whole time that you weren't threatening to find us. But once you threatened to find us, we found him. So we'll be, once again, perhaps disappointed to see that there's no punishment imposed on people. But getting the job done is job number one. What else? Let's see. The lawyer for Mr. Soto Jimenez says, I appreciate the government acting promptly after today's hearing in resolving this. It's just unfortunate that it had to get to this point. She's Minnesota nice, too. Federal judges are at their wits' end when it comes to the government, said Munir I. Ahmad, a Yale law professor who represents immigrants as part of the school's Worker and Immigrant Rights Advocacy Clinic. Judges are no longer willing to give the benefit of the doubt to the federal government that they're acting in good faith and with the integrity expected of government lawyers. It's really quite extraordinary. In other words, he's commenting on the dissolution of the assumption or presumption of regularity a term we've brought up a lot in the past. All right. Mr. Ahmed said he believed that Wednesday's ruling by Judge Provenzino, who was appointed by President Joe Biden, marked the first time that an official from Trump's second presidential administration had been held in contempt of court. I guess there were some from the first. David A. Super, that's the real name, a law professor at Georgetown, agreed. This is the first clear case of contempt this term that I know of, she said. Although there was a criminal, well, anyway, there was a threat of contempt, and I guess we'll all end up in the same spot here, where there was a threat that was disarmed by last-minute capitulation, and it happened in Minnesota. I don't know why they're discounting that one. Anyway, unlike criminal contempt, Professor Super noted, civil contempt, which imposes penalties to induce compliance, is, here's our answer, well, part of our answer, beyond the president's pardon power. Unless, of course, it isn't, right? While civil contempt rulings are very uncommon, they are not entirely without precedent. A judge held Betsy DeVos, Mr. Trump's education secretary during his first term, in civil contempt and fined the department she headed $100,000. I mean, you could easily take $100,000 out of Betsy DeVos's pocket too, but they didn't do it. Another federal judge, while stopping short of a contempt ruling, ordered lawyers from President Barack Obama's Justice Department to undergo ethics training. All right. So there's that too. But I don't know why it skips over the fact that last week, another Minnesota federal judge actually threatened contempt against, was it Todd Barnes? Unless he showed up in person to testify about ICE activities in Minnesota, but you could cure it by securing the release of one of the detainees whose case was before them, and then they too last minute released the guy, just as last minute we found the documents. I don't know why that gets left out of it, but that's why you come and listen to us read you the articles on the show. It's not enough just to read it on your own. Even if you remember it, you want to hear somebody else remembered it too. I'm not crazy. I do remember that. That's right. Okay. Well, some of the inherent value of the show. There's another judicial development here, which is reported by Reuters, which means I have to go back to Instapaper to see it. But headline here, U.S. judge throws out immigration board's ruling endorsing Trump mass detention policy. Nate Raymond of Reuters put this one together. A federal judge threw out on Wednesday an administrative board's decision endorsing the Trump administration's policy of subjecting thousands of people arrested during its immigration crackdown to mandatory detention. U.S. District Judge, real name, Sunshine Sykes, S-Y-K-E-S. Sunshine spelled exactly as you think. Have we run into this judge before? I'm not positive that we haven't. But you'd think I'd remember it better. This is happening in Riverside, California, where the judge vacated the decision and, by the Board of Immigration Appeals after finding the administration had failed to comply with her earlier order. Wow, crazy. Declaring unlawful the underlying policy of denying detainees the chance to seek release on bond. Okay. Is there more that we can read here? Sykes' Wednesday ruling in a class action lawsuit that covers migrants nationwide, is more sweeping than decisions by hundreds of other U.S. judges holding the policy is unlawful and ordering detainees to be freed or given bond hearings. That is to say, individuals in those cases. This is a class action suit covering everybody similarly situated, as they say. Sykes, appointed by former Democratic President Joe Biden, who, by the way, was certified and served 4 years, according to the Justice Department, called the administration's actions shameless and accused it of trying to continue its campaign of illegal action by refusing bond hearings despite her prior ruling. Respondents have far crossed the boundaries of constitutional conduct, Sykes wrote. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security and DOJ, which oversee the board, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Sykes' ruling means the board's decision can no longer be used by immigration judges to deny bond hearings, says Neil Frenzen, a professor at the University of Southern California's Gould School of Law, who represented the plaintiffs. I don't know whether it's Gould or Gold, but it's got a U in it, like the how you think the British might spell the word gold. I don't know whether it's pronounced that way or not. But again, we'll point out, technically it's supposed to mean that immigration judges can't use that as justification to deny bond hearings. But I bet we're going to continue to see immigration judges use it to deny bond hearings. And then either say, oh, I didn't know, or that's invalid, you can't make me. And then we'll have more cases arising from this. We hope that DHS and the immigration courts will now comply with the court's orders to provide bond hearings to the thousands of non-citizens who have been arrested. Professor Frenzen of the Gould School said in his statement, federal immigration law prescribes mandatory detention for applicants for admission to the United States while their cases proceed in immigration courts, and they are ineligible for bond hearings. Buckling a long-standing interpretation of the law, the DHS last year, as part of President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown, took the position that non-citizens already residing in the United States and not only those who arrive, at a port of entry at the border qualify as applicants for admission. You see what's going on here? Federal law prescribes mandatory detention for applicants for admission. So they're saying that's why we're holding people without bond hearings. We're just arresting them wherever they may be found and holding them without hearings. And up until this point, people said, well, you're talking about people who apply for asylum at border crossings. That was allegedly the intent of the law or the intent of the policy. The change was Trump saying, if you are in the country anywhere and you've been here for any length of time, 20 years later, if you're applying, you're still fighting your asylum case, you're still an applicant, and we can hold you without bond. But Judge Sykes saying, no, that's not the intent of the rule here. So the Board of Immigration Appeals, which is part of the Justice Department, issued a decision in September that adopted this new interpretation, leading to immigration judges nationally employed by the department to mandate detention. Remember that immigration judges, the ones who are sometimes claimed to have signed these administrative warrants that ICE agents occasionally try to display and use as a basis for effecting arrest, we're constantly reminded in the articles that immigration judges work for the DOJ. They're not part of the independent Article 3 judiciary. Sykes, in a ruling in December, she, of course, a member of the independent Article 3 judiciary, declared that the DH policy was unlawful, but at that time, December, stopped short of vacating the board's decision. But she said it was clear further relief was needed after the chief immigration judge, Teresa Riley, issued guidance instructing her colleagues that they are not bound by Sykes' ruling and that they should continue following the board's decision. Those immigration judges are employed by the Justice Department, but this is a case of Article 3 saying no to the way Article 2 is operating. They just feel like, we don't have to listen to that. But actually, it's one of those checks and balances. Sykes, in Wednesday's decisions, criticized DHS for repeatedly and inaccurately suggesting that operations by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement were limited to targeting criminal non-citizens who were, of course, the worst of the worst. Maybe that phrase merely mirrors the severity and ill-natured conduct by the government, Sykes wrote. Even those press releases might contain an inkling of the truth, they ignore a greater, more dire reality, turning their comments on themselves. Very interesting. And yet another victory before the Article 3 judges, and now we wait to see whether the rest of the government honors the integrity and power of the judiciary. And, so far in 4,400 plus cases, they have not. Also, let me sneak in this mention since it's sort of an accountability day. I don't have more information on this one yet, but Justin Hendricks posting some video on Blue Sky and reporting via Reuters that Mark Zuckerberg, while arriving at a Los Angeles courtroom yesterday, someone in a gaggle of media lobbed a question. Mr. Zuckerberg, did Meta purposely design the platform to harm children? That's a hell of a question. He was also, at the time, served with a summons as he entered the courtroom. Victims' parents stood outside. So some lawsuits landing on his lap, some summonses he's been able to dodge to date. He had a court date. Everybody knew it. And the process servers showed up to take advantage of that. Plus the press showing up to take advantage of the opportunity to yell those questions out. We didn't answer them. But just a little accountability moment anyway for bazillionaire Mark Zuckerberg. And we'll just add that to the roster so that everybody thinks of, what's today's date? Mark it down on the calendar. February 19th, 2026 as Accountability Day. Let's see if we can do it a little bit more than annually, though. Let's see. A few other things that definitely, well, we'll have to wait to bring them to your attention, of course. But there's an awful lot going on. We still got Friday, and we'll save it for then. And instead, update you on what Justice Putnam has got in store for you on the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy next, right here on Netroots Radio. Oh, no. There we go. I found it. All right. What's he got on tap for you? Trump's DOJ blows it bad in a blistering loss. Oh, goodness. We'll see whether it's any of the ones that we mentioned or whether there's yet more to talk about on the rest of the menu. The Trump DOJ attorney, you know about this one, held in contempt for refusing to return detainees' paperwork. So more on that. Kathy Rumler, back in the news, could be called a spy for sharing secret details with Epstein about a probe into a 2012 prostitution scandal that engulfed the Secret Service during her tenure as White House counsel.
NetRootsRadio.com.
Interesting.
You have been listening to Kagro in the morning with David Waldman.
That's an interesting angle on things because, of course, if it turns out to be the case that Andrew, not the prince, but regular Andrew, was in fact arrested on some sort of charges about improperly sharing sensitive information, well, I suppose that could happen to Kathy Rumler here in the United States as well. We'll see whether we know more about that tomorrow.